All right, he's the president for Americans for Limited Government, ALG. It's Bill Wilson. Bill, welcome back to the broadcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Denny.
His website is getliberty.org. I have it linked up on dennyradio.com. So, President Obama was obviously in Atlanta this week. Folks were pretty excited, pretty giddy about it. Interesting, though, the Democratic nominee for governor was as far away from Atlanta as he could get. He was deep south Georgia. His campaign originally came out and said, well, we weren't invited. Turns out they were invited. And somebody's not telling the truth here. And, here in Georgia where President Obama has a 37% approval rating, sounds like we know something down here, and the guy's toxic.
Yeah, and that's increasingly the case, Denny. I mean, White House press spokesman Gibbs today is quoted as saying, well, of course there are districts where Obama can't go. That would be suicidal. And so it's this now becoming a matter of common consensus that his role will be to raise money from the Hollywood elite and the other hard left money people around the country, and then just go on another vacation, I guess. Yeah,
and then his birthday is tomorrow, and he's in Chicago all by himself. Isn't that convenient? You know? Part day. Hopefully, he's got some people keeping an eye on him and he doesn't pull a Bill Clinton. All right, so let's talk about the leftist organization's report, Unfair Advantage, the business case against overseas tax havens. Bill, tell me what you know.
Well, this is really interesting, Denny. I mean, the Senate and Harry Reid have been desperate to come up with a way to, quote, pay for another $26 billion in handouts, basically state bailouts to public sector unions and some of the states that have been the most wasteful and spendthrift. And they set upon the idea of taxing businesses who make up money and overseas operations. Now, they already pay tax, but now, in effect, they would be double taxed. And out of the blue, Senator Levin of Michigan stands up on the floor and he waves around this study and says, see, according to this study, small business in America thinks it's only right to impose this additional tax burden on these large companies that are operating overseas. And see, here's proof positive we should tax these guys and spend it on the bailout money. Well, we started digging into who were these groups, and it's really illuminating. First off, there are no tax reports for these people anywhere. There are no paperwork filed. And as you dig in, what you find is that they're essentially made-up organizations that are either projects of union front groups or, in some cases, just literally made-up names. And so then we looked at the authors of the report, and they have nothing to do with business. They're all associated with a large organization in Washington called the Institute for Policy Studies. IPS was formed in the 60s by some very hard left, new left radicals. They've never missed a chance to kick the United States and support either anti-Israeli positions or pro-communist, pro-dictatorship positions.
So if I got this right, Bill, this is leftist propaganda.
Oh, pure and simple. And some of these guys are just, they're way out in left field. You can't even see them. They're so far out there.
You mean Carl Levin?
Yeah, well. Yeah.
And I was born and raised in Michigan, and thank God I escaped.
But see, here's the case. Carl Levin has to know this. I mean, he had to know that these organizations that they weren't organizations, and that you purport to have someone speaking for the small businessmen and women of the country who actually generate and create jobs, and hide behind them. And here's the great hypocrisy and cynicism of this. This Congress just finished throwing more burden and more damaging insult on small business in this country than at any time in our history. The health care bill will crush small business. The financial so-called reform bill is going to tighten and control credit. The unemployment costs are skyrocketing. They're talking about now raising taxes next year on people that fall into a category of income that is small business. And then after all of that, they dare to hide behind small business to justify going and raiding somebody else's pocketbook.
So the $37 billion, I mean, where do they come up with that number if these businesses don't exist?
Oh, well, this is the savings. These are the groups that are advocating. The billions they want to take are, I mean, very simply, and international tax law is pretty complex, but if right now, if a corporation has an operation in, say, Ireland, they make some money, they pay the Irish tax of about 21%, and then they get to repatriate, bring the money back, the extra money after paying the Irish tax. What Congress wants to do is say, no. The rate in the United States is 35%, so now you owe us 14%. We would be the only country in the world that would do that to their business. And so as a result, what you see are corporations that simply won't bring those funds, that capital, back to America. In our view, it's a legislation that's guaranteed to export capital and jobs overseas. So
the New York Times is on this bandwagon, I understand.
Well, that's to be predicted. Of course, the New York Times on Sunday ran a full-page editorial explaining why the only answer for the country was to raise taxes, that there really wasn't anything that government could cut, and that we just have to raise taxes across the board, middle class, everybody, and that was the only responsible thing to do.
Do you really think that they will do that? I mean, wouldn't that just be the nail in the coffin in the midterms or in 2012?
Oh, I don't think they'll do it between now and the midterms, Denny. I think some of them would like to. But, you have a position here of blindness. I think these folks are deluded and blinded by their own ideology. They're not open to any kind of argument or, don't let the facts confuse them. And they honestly believe that everything government's doing is just wonderful and productive, and that the only thing we need is more, and that it's up to you and I to pay for it, and if we don't like it, well, then we're just rubes, and we don't, poor dumb people that need to be looked after.
So where is this legislation? Has it been introduced yet?
Yes, it'll be on the floor of the Senate tomorrow.
Well, wait a minute. They're on break.
No, sir.
They're not on break?
The House is, but the
I
Senate...
know the House is because I had Congressman Tom Price on Monday, and he's tubing up in Helen right now and he's hanging out with his family.
Good for him. No, the Senate is in this week. And, in fact, they started debate today on the nomination of Elena Kagan to the Supreme Court.
Well, when do they go out? I just always assumed they were out together.
Usually they are, but Harry Reid decided to keep the Senate in this week, and